Welcome back, Knights. Welcome back, everyone. It is Battle Beast with Carbon Knights Gaming. And we are in episode 1 of the Carbon Knights Beginner's Guide for Summoner's War. I've got a series of videos here that are designed for new players, just to try to help them with the learning curve of the game. There's a ton of different aspects that come together, and there's a lot of things that they don't necessarily tell you, or, you know, we've all been through that tutorial where Ellie is trying to explain things, but you just want to play, so you're trying to skip through, and you maybe miss some of the stuff she was trying to explain. So it's just as easy for me to tell you. First thing we're going to talk about today, guys, is runes. Runes for your monsters. They don't come easy at the start, and you get some pretty low level ones, 1 and 2 star runes. But that's okay, we can still learn the best runes and how to use them for which monsters. And so, in the later videos, I'll go over the 3 first monsters that we all get, even the 4th one, and how to rune them the best way you can early on in the game with the runes available to new players. So, to start right in, let's have a look at some runes. So, we've got 6 slots on all these monsters, right? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Simple. What's not simple is maybe you don't know what type of stats you can get for which rune slots, because they're not all the same. So let's look at energy runes, because those are the first ones you're going to get. And on slot 1, guys, energy runes always have an attack flat stat. We call this a flat stat because there's not a percent behind it. Slot 1 is always going to be attack, and it's always going to be a flat stat. Now, sometimes you can find a rune. Doesn't necessarily have to be that one. Okay, right here. You see how we have a primary stat. This is slot 2, which you can get percents for. And this is, let's call it the secondary main stat. Now, this is important because you might see runes that have both. Let's see if I can find one. Here's one. So, in this rune we have a primary stat, a secondary stat. Now on all runes, doesn't matter which slot, this secondary stat is static. It is never going to change. What it is when you get that rune is what it's always going to be. When you upgrade the rune to level 3, to level 6, to level 9, and to level 12, your substats, which are these ones down here, they will be the ones that increase, and they gain power and numbers as you upgrade the rune. But remember, so your primary stat moves every time you upgrade. The secondary stat never changes. The resistance, well, and not resistance, but these substats are the ones that upgrade again at level 3 on the rune, level 6, level 9, and level 12. Then they will have their little jumps. And they can be after the first jump at level 3. They can be random. It can add on to the ones that are already there, or it could add new ones up to, I believe it's 5. So, getting back to our energy runes here. So, rune 1, always flat attack. So, get the best that you can. Focus maybe more on your substats, because they're more dynamic with the slot 1 rune. Okay, slot 2 is important now. Slot 2 is way more important, in theory, than slot 1 or 3. Slots 2, 4, and 6 can get percent stats. And like you can see right here, here's a percent stat. And I'll show you an example of a difference. So on one of my monsters here, the Fire Vampire, and we'll look at some vampire runes. In slot 2, guys, he has an attack flat stat rune, and here is an attack percent rune. Now, I'll be straight honest with you. The attack flat stat attack rune on slot 2 is a bad idea. I just have it on here because I haven't really finished building him, and I wanted to try as much speed on this monster as I could. Excuse me. Anyways, so why is its percent better than a flat stat? Well, the percent of the rune increases as your monster's stats increase when you level him up. And by the time your monster's max level, 8%, well, is not even upgraded, But a top level rune will add 63% attack or HP, and that's always going to be way more than the, I think, 1800 that you get from a flat stat 6-star rune. So anyways, the point is, you're always looking for these percent runes on slot 2, and never these. I mean, sometimes you're going to get a good one when you're a new player and you're going to go with it, but don't upgrade them too much. Wait for that percent rune. Another interesting thing about slot 2, and I'll show you one of those guys, if I can find one of my monsters. It is the only slot that you can get speed flat stat. Now, lots of monsters, their attacks are based on speed, or they really should be going a lot faster than other monsters, because they need to be supporting, they need to be using their skills for buffs or debuffs or whatever. Speed is always a good idea. You can always make an argument that speed's the best rune, or not the best, but speed is useful on 2. Some monsters probably do, you know, they just have more defense or more attack without it, or HP, whatever, but speed is only on a flat stat, on a main stat, only slot 2 for your runes, only 2. And also, speed is never a percent, speed is always a flat stat, so don't look for speed percent runes, you're just not going to find them. Okay, that covers slot 2. Slot 3 is a little bit like slot 1, but instead of attack, you're always going to have defense flat stat. Always going to be defense. So again, try to get substats that are useful for that monster that you put them on. If you have an HP monster like Royd, your Wind Vagabond, this would be a good rune for him. It's energy, which means a double set of energy runes increases his HP by 15%. And there we are. 2 set HP. Well, it's there anyway. That's going to increase that, plus he's got another 12%, and I'll go over Royd in later videos, but his attacks, a couple of them, are based on his hit points, so the higher his hit points, the better his attacks are, right? The stronger, the more damage he deals. And so, if your defense is always going to be flat, don't worry about it. Always look on slot 1, 3, and 5, and we'll do 5 in a bit, but for these substats that match your monsters. So that's pretty simple there. Okay, slot 4, guys. Slot 4 is kind of like slot 2, where you can get attack percent, you can get HP percent, you can get defense percent. You can't get your speed. Like I said, it's only on slot 2 for speed. But things you can get on slot 4 that you can't get anywhere else are, let's see if I can find some, they're crit rate and crit damage percent. I don't have any there. I know some monsters with them on, so does this guy have it? Yeah, here's a crit rate rune, percent. You only see crit rate percent, so you're only going to see a crit rate percent rune on slot 4. And so some monsters have skills that do other things every time they get a critical hit, like the light bearman. That's important for monsters like that. Another example of runes that you can only get on slot 4 is here, crit damage percent. That means when your monster does a critical hit, it does more damage, and you power those runes up. That means those critical hits are devastating. So monsters that hit really hard and have a decent crit rate can benefit from crit damage percent on slot 4. Again, so slots 2 and 4, you're focused on your main stat more or less. Slots 1 and 3, they're flat stats. So your substats is something you're looking is more important. You're never going to get, you know, if your 4-star or 5-star rune has way better substats than your 6-star rune does, it's better to use it, because the little bit of defense or flat stat attack or HP that you give up for it is worth it in the long run, easily. Okay, slot 5, guys. Just like slot 1 is attack, slot 3 is defense, slot 5 is flat HP. Always. Always, always, always. So again, like we just went over, look at your substats. Find HP or speed or accuracy. And we'll go over some of those substats and where they're important in another video, especially accuracy. That's probably the most confusing stat with whatever they have their activation checks before you even have a calculation if your debuff is successful. But anyways, so yeah, guys, slot 5 always HP flat. So make sure you get the substats you need for the monsters you get. Okay, slot 6 is kind of like 2 and kind of like 4. It's one of your more important main stat slots. You can get attack percent, HP percent, defense percent. You can also get on slot 6, where you can't get anywhere else, is accuracy percent. And I'll show you one of those. Who's got one of those? Galleon. My water pirate is an accuracy rune, a percent. And you can only get those for slot 6. So monsters that do debuffs benefit from accuracy. What do I mean by debuffs? Well, if you read his first skill, it attacks an enemy and weakens its defense for 1 turn. That's a debuff. This kind of counts too. It deals a powerful attack to an enemy and absorbs 30% of its attack bar. They can resist that too if your accuracy is low. And his third skill, which decreases the defense of the enemy for 2 turns with 75% chance. So yeah, that's where accuracy comes into effect, and you can only get that on slot rune 6. So remember that, guys, when you're reading your monster's skills and choosing which runes you're wanting to buff, to build. Early on in the game, your first monsters, you get the Fire Hellhound, so he's an attack monster, and we'll go over him specifically, but he's an attack monster, so you want Fatal Runes, or Energy Runes, because HP is never wrong, with attack percent on 2, or speed on 2, and attack percent on 4, and attack percent on 6. And your substats should reflect that. Remember how we went over slots 1, 3, and 5, or 1, 3, and 5 for you guys in the camera? But yeah, we went over that. So your substats, if you can get an attack percent substat on slot 3 on that rune, and that'd be great for Seek, right? Or a little bit of speed there. Your Water Fairy is a support monster, so you can kind of rune her different, but her attacks, her heals are based on her attack power, so she can benefit from Fatal Runes too, but all energy is probably good for her too with some attack percent. We'll go over her in another video. And Royd is an HP monster, using Wind Vagabond that you've got. And he's really benefits from HP percent. And then remember slot 4 we talked about, you could get that crit damage, so your critical hits really do an impact. And when you pair your Wind Vagabond with your Fire Hellhound, the crit rate is buffed, and if you have a crit damage rune on his slot 4, he's going to do massive damage, especially with his skills. We'll go over all those monsters separately in other videos, but I just wanted to give you a broad view of how they kind of work together. So anyways, guys, I guess we could cover real quick. I just want to show you, if you missed that from the tutorial, you can check which runes come from which areas by clicking this drop info, and you'll see you get energy. And slot 1 energy runes come from level 1, slot 2 energy runes come from level 2, slot 3 from level 3, and so on. And it's the same for every level. And here's the second scenario area you guys will be fighting in. You'll get Fatal Runes, and a 4 set buffs your attack, or energy runes buff your hit points with only 2. So you could have 3 sets of 2 on your 6 of energy, but only 1 full set of Fatal Runes on your monster. And those sets are important. Try not to have too many broken sets if you can avoid it. Yeah, and then here's some Blade Runes from level 3. Blade Runes increase your critical hit chance, and that's good. And here we have Rage Runes, which when your critical hit damage goes up, like slot 4 rune, right? So you can make some deadly combos if you rune your monsters correctly and hit way above your weight class just as you're starting out. I think that's going to cover all for this one. If you have any questions about runes, leave them in the comments. Send us an email. You can get us on Twitter. Fire them our way. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. The next video I'll probably go over your first monster, the Fire Hellhound, and how to rune him. And we'll go from there. Thanks, Knights. Tune in next time.
But if I'm going out, hey, I think I'd be much happier if I had onion rings with me.
Yeah, I gotta agree.
I'm
I
just
can't
saying.
disagree with that, no. Alright, boss time, buddy. I got this.
Don't let his
I already hit him like a million
swinging
times.
ball hit you.
Yeah, you can't touch those balls.
Watch the vast deference.
Oh, damn it.
Oh.
Right in the vast
You're-
depths.